After working with thousands of course creators, online business owners, online experts, coaches, consultants, and more, we have realized that when people have messaging problems, there are usually a couple different signs. There's actually a lot of different signs, but there are 5 main ones that almost 90% of people are experiencing every time they have a messaging problem. In fact, most people don't even realize they have a messaging problem. So they start doing things like moving to different platforms, trying different strategies, a different content strategy, trying different content strategies, like I said, but even just different types of content. They try all of these other external things except fixing the actual issue because they didn't even know what the root cause was, which was their communication. I'm going to tell you right now, if your communication is off, your messaging is off, it doesn't matter what platform you go on, what strategy you use, or what content type you use. If your communication is off, it will be off no matter what you try to do. Again, whether it's trying a new strategy, moving to a different platform, or trying a different content type. That's why when your messaging is off, usually it's off in your emails, your ads, content, webinars, everything is off and plateaued. And so what I wanted to do is create this episode for you to walk you through the 5 biggest signs that your messaging is off, and it is what's causing the biggest problem inside your business. So if that's interesting to you, if you want to learn what these 5 messaging signs are, these 5 signs telling you your messaging is off, so you can finally start to fix your messaging, and we're going to dive into how to start fixing it, well, this episode is for you, and you can keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we are continuing with our series, and it is episode number 3. Today's episode is going to be a little bit more focused on messaging. Again, we're trying to go through, an 6 to 8 week series, breaking down different things that you're going to need in order to generate more sales, scale your business, turn this thing that you're doing into a real, actual, fully functioning business. We're going to talk about messaging, sales, team, a lot of that stuff. In last week's episode, we talked a little bit about team and structure and KPIs and all that good stuff. But today, what I wanted to talk about is actually is messaging. And look, we've been, as you know, teaching messaging, working inside of messaging and communication for the last 5 or more years. And I've worked with, I think we have, I don't know the actual number anymore, but it's close, between 2,000 to 3,000 students have gone through some sort of messaging program that we've created. So we've had literally thousands of people go through our messaging programs. And, when you start to bring in that many students and have anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 people go through, actually, it's probably way more than that now I think about it, through our trainings and things like that, hundreds of thousands of people probably, you start to realize that there's these commonalities. There's these very clear signs. There's these very clear experiences that people have that are major indicators that their messaging is actually off. So this is also very valuable for us, because when we talk to people, or our sales teams talks to people, and we hear them talk about their problems and their issues and what they're dealing with, we know and can identify right off the bat, oh yeah, it's a messaging problem. And there's about 5 main ones. I mean, there's more than that, but there's about 5 that come up about 80% of the time. And I want to dive into 3 of them here today inside of this episode. We're going to break down what they are and how to fix them. But there are about 5. And so what I want to do is I'm just going to go through, I'm going to read them to you, the 5 of them, and I'll let you know which ones we're going to be tackling today. And the reason why we're not going into all 5 is because the answer that I'm going to give to these 3 is kind of the same answer to the other 2. So you will have all the information that you need. Okay. So here are the 5 signs that you know your messaging is off as a course creator, an online expert, or consultant. Okay. So here's the first one. Number 1, You're posting consistently and it's really good information. Okay. So you know that you can help people. It's probably information that's taken you a huge amount of time to learn, but your engagement's low every time you put it into content. No one seems to respond to it. When you teach it inside of webinars, launches, workshops, challenges, things like that, it really leads to no sales or very little sales. And you might even be getting comments like, wow, this was great information. Wow, this was really great. Or I have enough to get started. And then there's no sales. So that's number one. That's messaging. Your messaging is off there. And more specifically, it's your teaching messaging. So it's the way in which you are teaching and how you're adding value is really off there. So usually what's happening is you're just overwhelming people. You're giving people too much information. And most importantly, you're not meeting your audience where they're at. Okay. We'll talk more about that in this episode. Number two, your launches and funnels have either never taken off, or they were doing well over the past 12 months, but they are now plateaued, they've declined, or even though, let me rephrase that. Over the past 12 months, they have plateaued or declined, even though you're teaching and delivering really good information. So, some of the stuff that you've been doing, like webinars and launches, may have actually been working. So you may have launches and sales mechanisms and all these things that were working, but over the past 12 months, they've either declined or plateaued. Again, a couple of reasons for this one. We're not going to dive heavily into this one today, but a couple of reasons why this is happening is because you've had a lot of competitors come in. And people are either teaching the same information. So they're hearing the same information and teaching from multiple people. You're either delivering too much information, is another good reason why this is working, or the awareness level of your audience has shifted over the past 12 months, meaning that what you're now teaching or doing or communicating isn't as relevant as it was 12 months ago. And that happens too. You got to update things. You got to keep it fresh. You got to realize that your market, the market's awareness level will shift and change. And so here's a perfect example. 5 years ago, when I would talk about messaging, it would bomb because no one knew what messaging was. But now the awareness of the marketplace has shifted. People are now more aware of what messaging is. So I can use the word messaging and people get it. That didn't happen 5 years ago, right? So my teachings and communication has to shift and change based on my audience's awareness level. All right. Number three, we will talk about this one. This is actually the number one thing we're going to talk about today. Here's the third sign that your messaging is off, is that people only understand what you do, why they need you, or how good you are after they work with you or get coached by you. No matter what you do, you can't seem to communicate to them that they need you inside of your content, sales funnels, launches, and marketing. I got to tell you, I think this might be the number one sign that your messaging sucks, that you're messaging off. And you can sit here and tell me all day long about how good of a coach you are and blah, 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 blah. But again, data doesn't lie. Sales aren't coming in. Your messaging is not great. And it might be even more of a mind F, because when they work with you, all you hear is like, oh, you're so good. Oh my God, you're amazing. Oh my God, this was so valuable. This was so helpful. But then when it comes to your marketing and your content and all the upfront stuff, people just don't seem to get it. And you're like, I don't freaking get it, man. Like, people are getting it over here and they're getting so much value. But then when I bring it here, they don't understand why they need me, and you don't know the gap. Plain and simple, you're speaking to people at different awareness levels as if they're not at different awareness levels, or they're in different spaces and you're speaking to them as if they're not in different spaces. And you can't do that. You got to have your different messaging and communication for before the sale, and you have to have your different communication and messaging for after the sale. Because again, people's trust levels are different. Their space is different, meaning they may be more open for coaching versus before the sale. They might be that for after the sale. Again, we're going to dive more into this in today's episode, but this is like one of the number one things that we hear from people is like, I don't get it. Like, I'm a good coach, but I just can't communicate it on the front end. Okay. Number 4 is that you attract the wrong people. So this means that, they never buy. It feels like they always have money issues. They don't seem to align with you. They don't align with your values. They don't align with your message. They don't align with who you are. So attracting the perfect customer never seems to happen, no matter how much you post or how hard you try. So attracting the perfect customer never seems to happen. That's because your messaging is off. You have to understand what you say and the content you create and what you're communicating is literally what's going to attract people into your audience. So if you're bringing people into your audience, it means whatever you're saying and communicating is attracting them. So you're saying stuff that's attracting the wrong people. So we got to stop doing that. And we're going to dive into that one as well. And then number 5, we're going to dive more into this one today as well, is you don't get messages from people asking to work with you. Now, look, this doesn't have to happen every day or all the time, but every once in a while, you should get at least one person that's reaching out to you asking, how do I work with you? This is amazing. And here's the reason why. If your messaging is on point, if it addresses problems, if they trust you, they trust your ability to solve the problem, if they trust their own ability to follow your process, they know, like, and trust you, they have connection to you, and they don't see an opportunity or a way to work with you, they're going to message you. But again, you have to pick the right problem that they're actually dealing with. You have to build the 3 levels of trust that I just went over. You have to be relevant to what they're going through. And when that storm, that perfect storm, is created, people will literally reach out to you asking, how do I work with you? I haven't seen anything on your website. This will happen when your messaging is dialed in. And so if it's not happening, it means your messaging is off. So again, the 5 things are: you're posting consistently with really good information. There's no engagement. No one seems to respond to it. It's not leading to sales. Number 2, your sales and your launches and sales funnels have either never taken off, or they were doing well, but now they have declined or plateaued over the past 12 months, even though you're giving out great information. Number 3, it feels like people only understand you after they work with you or get coached by you. Number 4, you attract the wrong people and you never seem to attract the right people, the perfect people. And number 5 is you never get messages from people asking how to work with you. So those are the 5 signs that your messaging is off as a course creator. Now, what I want to do is dive into the last 3, the most important ones, the ones that are the most common. And the advice on how to fix these will be the same advice on how to fix the other 2. Okay. So we're going to start with people only know how good you are after they work with you. This one's really important. And some of the reasons why this is happening is because you kind of go into convincer mode with your content. So this may be you trying to prove how smart you are. You're trying to just be like super deep and maybe philosophical, or you're trying to like just show, how vast your knowledge is. And you're just like delivering all of this information to them, right? You're maybe using high, technical terms or language that like is something, someone with a degree would be using, or, whatever it may be. And the other part of it is when you go into convincer mode and you're trying to deliver all this information and educate them so much, what happens is this convincer mode starts to overteach. And that means you either overwhelm them or you trick them into thinking they have everything they need. When you overwhelm someone, what's happening really is they're losing their trust in their own ability to follow your process. They're going to think things like, it's too complicated. This is too hard. It's too overwhelming. I'm not going to be able to do this. So they're losing trust in their own ability to solve the problem using your information. So they're either not going to solve it at all, or going to go to somewhere else, or you trick them in thinking they have everything they need, or you literally give them enough stuff to focus on for the next month or 2, right? So they're like, I don't even need a course. This is plenty for me to take the next step. Both of those don't lead to sales. And the other part of this too is when you kind of go in this convincer mode is the energy is different. The energy is shifted. So when you're working with someone and they're being coached by you, you have the time and the space to be able to build the things that you need. They're also more open to information and feedback and listening to you. However, on the front end, you want the sale. So your energy is shifted and changed. There's this pressure that you have. You're trying to say the right thing, trying to get it right. You're trying to make sure that you're not, you're doing all the things you need to do to deliver the sale. You're hoping that sale is coming. Your energy is different versus now after the sale and you're working with someone, your energy is probably more calm. There's no pressure there. So not only do we have the convincer mode, but we also have the pressure of wanting to make the sale all combined together. And that's usually a recipe for disaster. And that's why it's like, okay, well, when they finally come in, they know how good I am. And it's like, yeah, because the pressure's off you. They're in a completely different mind space. You're in a different space. There's an agreement there that I'm going to be coached by you. You're going to help me. And your skills can really come through because you don't really have to be disciplined or intentional with what you're saying and when you're saying it, which you do need to do on the front end in order to deliver sales. And so this goes to the next point is like when you get there, you start to deliver. Sometimes what's happening is you start to deliver all this information on the webinar or inside of your content, and it's too deep and all of this stuff. But really what's going on is your audience isn't in the right place for that information yet. So you need to know what to deliver and when to deliver it. So when you go into coach mode after they purchase, that's the right place for that information. That's the right place to go deeper. That's the right place. Because like I said before, both you and the audience member are in the right mind space for that. There is an agreement. There's no pressure anymore. And the next thing to talk about is when you have the sale made and they're in the coaching container now, the consulting container, the whatever is you sold, there usually is already a level of trust built up, right? So they in order to make the sale, they should have trust in their own ability to do it. They have trust in your ability to solve the problem, and they trust you as a human being. So when the trust is already built, then the container becomes a safe, sacred place for you to be able to coach, for you to be able to be more open, right? Not only that, but there's a lot more relevancy already built. They already have convinced themselves or become aware that, yeah, this person understands me. They get me, right? So that's already taken care of. There's connection built and their guards are down. They don't think they're going to be sold anything, right? They're just here to get help. So it's a completely different environment after the sale is made. And those four things, building the trust, being relevant, connection, and getting their guard down, that's what your messaging should be doing before the sale. And if it's not, you're not going to make the sale. So that's why if you try to take the same level of communication after someone makes the sale, when they're getting coached by you, and you try to bring it to the front end, you're doing that, whether you realize it or not, assuming, oh, they're just going to trust me. Oh, I'm just going to be relevant. Oh, I've already built connection. Oh, they're going to have their guard down. It's like, no, they don't trust you at all. They don't know if you're relevant to them in their situation or you understand it. They haven't connected with you and their guard's up because they're not sure what's going on. If you're going to sell them anything, they don't know. So your messaging needs to do those things. So the main reason why people only feel like you see how good you are after the sale is because your communication has not built the things that you need to build. And it's hard because you only have a limited amount of time to do it, right? Like your content is either just going to be an image or a carousel slider, or it's going to be like a 3 to 5 minute video. You have a limited amount of time to build the things that you need to build. And you have to meet your audience where they're at. And that's kind of the main thing here too, is when you start to go into this coach mode, you're not meeting your audience where they're at. And where they're at is, I don't know if I trust this person. I don't know if I trust myself. I don't know if this person gets me. I don't know if they understand the problem. I don't even know if they have a solution. So when you meet someone at that place, you have to start to build that through your messaging. And again, you only have a limited amount of time because you have a 3-minute video, or you have like a funnel or a launch that's only going to be like a week long or whatever it is. So your communication style has to shift and change. You have to meet them where they're at so that it works. And you can't meet them where you're at now. You have to meet them where they're at now. And so that's the biggest thing with coaching, is when people coach you, or you're coaching people, they're meeting you where you're at. right? They're already built all of those things. They've already realized, okay, I need this and this, da, 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 da. So they're meeting you more where you're at. But in the beginning, you're going to have to meet them more where they're at. They're at a problem. I don't know if I can trust this. I don't know who to trust. I don't know who's going to solve this problem for me. So there's all these things that have to start to come together in order to build that. And that's what we teach. We teach you how to do that. So we do that through our launches and our programs and my content and this podcast and all of that stuff. So that's the main reason why people don't realize in your upfront content that you can help them. So some of the ways to fix this is just get very clear on the specific problems that you solve for people. Communicate what those problems are. Let them know why the problems are happening. Let them know you understand what they've tried and explain why it's not working. All of that sort of stuff. Give them some first steps on what to do, not how to do it, what to do, so they can see a vision of where they need to go. Incorporate your values and your beliefs and your identity so they connect with you. All of that stuff builds relevancy, it builds trust, it builds everything that you need to get them into the right place. All right. So number 2 is you never seem to attract the dream clients. And there's a lot of reasons why this is happening. But if you seem to be attracting the wrong people into your audience day in and day out, again, it's a messaging problem, because whatever you're saying is the filter that people come through in order to enter your ecosystem and your products and things like that. So if you're constantly getting the wrong people in your audience on your launches or the wrong people buying your stuff, it's because your communication filter, the way in which you're communicating, allows them to come in because they felt it's relevant to them. They feel like you're speaking to them. So again, if you have the wrong people in your audience, it's 100% your fault. You may not have done it intentionally, but it's still your fault. And sorry if that's harsh. Actually, I'm not really that sorry. You need to hear it. It is your fault. And it's your fault because the way in which you're communicating, again, like I'm saying again, is literally the filter that people come through in order to get into your audience. I can tell you this. People will not come into your audience if they do not feel that you are relevant to them. So whatever you're saying is making the wrong people feel like, wow, this person is relevant to me. So there's a couple of reasons why this is happening. Number 1 is you yourself, you have not gotten clear on who you want to work with. Who do you like to work with? Who do you want to attract? And a lot of the fears that people have is like, well, Brandon, if I pick this person, then that means I'm going to have a limited amount of people and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, for most of us who are selling products that are 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, like you just need a couple hundred people a year to come in. You don't need a lot of people to come in. Number 1. Number 2, what's the point, man? Like if you have the wrong people come in your audience, you're not enjoying it. What's the point of letting them continue to come in? Why? Because you think you're going to make more sales? What, do you really want more sales of the wrong people you hate working with and have a really crappy business that you don't look forward to waking up to in the morning? Because I don't want that. I don't want the wrong people in my audience. I don't want people complaining about my course and program. That's the other thing that's going to start happening is people are going to complain about your course and your program and it's not so good and blah, 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 whatever, I want the best people that are more like me, aligned with me, appreciate my teaching style coming in to the program. I also am very clear on who my program works for and doesn't work for. I don't want people coming into my program that aren't going to get results. Like I'm very clear that if you own an e-com site and you're selling physical products online, my program is probably not the best place for you because we focus on course creators. And so do I want you coming in and then saying, I don't know why this isn't working? And I don't want that. I want people to have amazing results. Our program is designed for this type of person who has these specific problems. Very clear on that. And it allows me to then communicate that very clearly upfront in my content, in my ads, in my launches. And then we just bring the right people in. Another reasons why you don't seem to attract the right people is because you're too heavily focused on the end result, the benefits, and the transformation. So what I mean by that is that you're constantly talking about, like for me, it'd be like, who wants bigger launches and make more money and engaging content? And it's like, who doesn't want that? Everyone's going to want that. Even people that may not even be course creators are going to want that, right? And more engaging content, bigger launches, more sales. They're all going to want that. So when you focus too heavily on the end result, then what happens is it attracts a wide range of people because everyone wants the end result. And so some of the ways to fix this is to get clear on the beliefs and the values that you have and the problems you solve and the identities that you want to serve. So for me, the identities I want to serve are course creators, and course creators, online experts, coaches, consultants, And so when I start now, instead of saying things like, hey, do you want bigger launches and more engaging content? My communication starts to shift to be like, hey, are you a course creator who's putting out like the most amazing information in the world, but you're not getting the result? And all you want is more engaging content, more sales. Guess what? That communication that I just demonstrated has filters. It has the filter of identity. It had the filter of here's the specific problem you have. So the identity was course creators. The problem was it putting out content with really good information and not getting the results. And then I added the transformation. You just want engaging content that hits it out of the park. But if you only focus on the transformation, yes, that could technically be a filter, but it's only one filter. So now when I add in identity and I add in problems and stuff, those are more filters that allow me to track the right person. So again, when you start to talk more about your values and your beliefs and your identities and your problems, you start to attract more of the right person that you want inside of your audience. And so you also have to understand that a lot of the times, all these filters don't need to happen right in one piece of content or every piece of communication you put out. You have to understand your brand is an ecosystem, and people can capture these. And the more they sit inside your ecosystem, the more they start to capture these filters. So, they may watch one video where I talk about my beliefs. I might have a belief that kids should be taught entrepreneurship. And people in my brand will be like, hell yeah. And if you don't believe it, then it's like, I'm probably going to go listen to somebody else. But it's like, I want people that have similar outlooks on life as me, values as me. And I'm very clear on who I want to work with. I've made conscious choices on who I want to work with. I actually hear this a lot from our students is like, sometimes there's people who have their belief system or their religion or whatever it may be is very important to them. So important that they only want to work with people of the same faith. And I support that because it's your choice. It's your brand. Do whatever the heck it is you want to do. Work with whoever the heck it is you want to work with. And the right people will come in. So you can use the identity of whatever that faith is and stuff to bring, again, use a filter to bring in the right people. And you also have to then get comfortable knowing that and be okay with pushing people that don't fit that filter away. And sometimes people have an issue with that, but this isn't about necessarily pushing the wrong people away. It's about getting clear on who you are, who you want to work with and all that stuff. So for me, I made a conscious choice that I don't want to integrate my specific beliefs around religion or spirituality per se into my brand. Yes. Do I talk about spirituality and things like that from time to time? Of course. Yes. But I'm never going to use a headline like, hey, spiritual entrepreneurs or this or that, or hey, Christian entrepreneurs or hey, Catholic entrepreneurs or course creators or whatever. I don't want to do that because I don't care what anyone's faith is. You come in and I'm going to support you. Want to help people in the way you want to help people. I will help you do that. I don't care about that stuff. Right. But again, that came down to a conscious choice that I made with my brand. And you need to make that choice with your brand. What are the values? What are the beliefs? Who do you want to work with? And start incorporating more of that in your content, knowing that it's going to be a filter that will either push people away or bring in the right people. Okay. So again, get clear on the values, the beliefs, the identities and the problems, and yes, the transformation, but you don't want to focus just on the benefits and transformation. You want to start combining these elements together as much as you can. And what will start to happen is the right people will start to come into your audience. Okay. And you see it all the time. You may even see ads that say, hey, if you're a 6-figure entrepreneur, guess what? That's a filter to try to attract people with money. Right. So you can use these sort of filters to bring in the right people. And I will say that it will never be 100%. Even if you decide to go say, I only want to work with Christian entrepreneurs, you'll say the word Christian entrepreneurs and there may be someone who's not Christian coming in. Nothing's ever going to be 100%. And I see it all the time. I constantly use the word course creators or coaches and consultant, and I get ecom people coming in my brand all the time. But the point is that it's highly limited. I'm getting more of the right people and less of the wrong people than before. And that's sort of the goal here. All right. Number 3. The third one is going to be, you don't get people asking to work with you. And this one's pretty easy and straightforward. What it really comes down to is if you're not getting people to ask, how do I work with you? It doesn't have to happen a lot, but it should happen from time to time. It's because people either don't know what you do, they don't find you relevant to their specific situation or problem, or they don't trust you or themselves to follow your process. It's usually what it comes down to. So if they don't trust you, usually that means that you haven't been relevant enough to their specific scenario, their specific problem, to their specific issue. It means that you probably focused a lot on educational content, which we still need. We just don't want to do it all the time. Or sometimes it comes down to you didn't pick a problem that is big enough for them. And I always remember this story. I don't remember where I heard it from, but there was this guy walking down a sidewalk and he looks over on the porch and there's this dog sitting there whimpering. And the owner's sitting next to the dog and he asks the owner, why is your dog whimpering? And the owner says, because he's sitting on a nail. And the guy says, well, why doesn't he get up and move? And he says, oh, because it doesn't hurt bad enough yet. And so people don't move until the situation gets bad enough, until the pain is too much. It's too intense. And sometimes if you pick a problem to solve for people and it's not a big enough problem, they're like, you know what? I'd rather just deal with this problem than have to pay $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever it is dollars. I'd rather just sit with it. That's fine. It doesn't hurt bad enough yet. And so sometimes some of you are picking problems that just don't hurt bad enough yet. And therefore no one reaches out to you. But if you pick a problem that is painful enough, that is a big enough problem inside of someone's life, and the way in which you communicate allows them to feel like, okay, I trust this person, they get me, they're relevant to me, I have this solution, they will reach out to you if they don't see an option to work with you. So they may go to your website, enter a funnel or something like that, or they may not see something on the website or may not see a funnel, or you may be not launching at the time or whatever it may be. They will literally start to reach out to you asking, how do I work with you? How do you help me fix messaging? What do you have for me? And again, it doesn't have to happen all the time, but if it's happening 0% of the time, it means there's something off in most cases with your messaging. And we have to start to fix that. And so I know in the last episode, I gave that analogy with the doctor, and I'll give it again real quick, just do a quick version of it. Let's pretend you developed stomach pain a week ago, starts at 7:30 at night, ends at 8:30 at night. You go to 9 doctors and 9 doctors tell you, I have no idea what's wrong with you. You're probably going to feel sad and depressed, like there's no end in sight. But if you go to the 10th doctor and the 10th doctor takes one look at you, you don't even say a word, and they say, let me guess, stomach pain started about a week ago and starts at 7:30 at night, ends at 8:30. And you sit there and go, oh my God, yes, that's exactly what I'm dealing with. How did you know? And the doctor goes, well, you got stomach loop. And then the doctor walks away. You're going to chase that doctor down and say, doctor, how do I fix this? What's the treatment? What's the solution? And the doctor never said they had a solution or a treatment. They never said they even helped anyone heal it. They never showed you their degrees or their testimonials, all the things you think you need for sales. They never did any of it, but yet there you are chasing them down. Why? Because they were so specific on what was actually going on. It was so relevant to your situation, like 100% relevant, that you felt heard, understood, validated, and the trust in their ability to solve the problem went through the roof, because you know there's no way that someone would have an understanding to the depth that they did without dealing with this issue already. And that's what relevancy is. And when your content and messaging can start to do that for people, you will literally get people reaching out to you asking how to work with you, because they feel so heard, so validated. It's a big problem in their life. They're like, this person gets it. They understand it on a level that no one else does. And that's where demand creation starts to happen as well. So if people aren't asking to work with you, I can tell you right now, you're not being relevant enough. You're not making them feel heard or validated. You either don't understand what the actual problem really is. And I don't mean things like, oh, they're overwhelmed. It's like, no, describe overwhelm so perfectly to a T that their subconscious automatically goes, this person gets it. That's me. I call it the that's me effect. And it takes time to learn what that is and how to communicate it. But again, that's like, we go over that inside of our program NGM Plus in phase 1. That is the first thing we go through because it is that important to understand that. So those are the 3 major ones. I know we went through 5 in the beginning, but those are the 3 major signs that your messaging is off. And if your messaging is off and any one of those is you, pay attention to the rest of the series. And we actually have a special training workshop coming out, depending on when you're listening to this episode, fairly soon. I think it starts on September 19th. Mark your calendars, register for it when we announce it, because we're going to be breaking down exactly how to fix all of these inside of your messaging, inside of your content, inside of your brand. So if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. I love reading your reviews, and pay attention to next week, because next week's going to be a great episode. We're going to continue our series, and I'm trying to remember what I think we're going to be talking about numbers that tell you your content is off. So we talked about it last week, how to use numbers to distinguish where the problems are and stuff. We're going to go into more in depth on that on the next episode. Again, this is a whole series on a lot of different elements that most people won't talk about, don't talk about, that you're going to need in order to grow a really successful business. So pay attention to the next week, and I will see you there.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.